And ironically, the kids nowadays are like, oh, this is like original. You're like, no, 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 let me play you some Madonna. Let me play you some Cyndi Lauper.
That's today's guest, DJ, author, and music business educator Amani Roberts, reminding us that what's old is new again for our students. Welcome to Music Ed Insights. I'm leadership trainer and former band director Alan Fire, here with composer and co-college music education program head Steve Shanley.
Each episode, Alan and I talk with national thought leaders in music education with practical insights for K-12 music educators.
Steve, tell us about our guest.
Amani Roberts is a DJ, author, and music business professor whose work sits at the intersection of hospitality, creativity, and music education. He's also a DJ and keynote speaker, and his insights have been featured in People Magazine, Yahoo Finance, Forbes, and the Los Angeles Times. You'll find Amani's full bio, show notes, and resources at musicedinsights.com. Alan, what was the takeaway you had from this episode?
I like how he reframes the singles and playlists world that our students live in now, and us too. Instead of fighting shorter attention spans, he talks about how to use artists kids already love, Taylor Swift, Kendrick Lamar, etc., to teach deeper listening, form, and storytelling. So we can shift from this is a problem to, hey, this is our raw material. How about you?
I loved his perspective on beat making. He treats it as a doorway into rhythm, harmony, and collaboration, and it's such a practical way to keep more students creating music on their own terms. And also, paranoid band directors out there, I promise this will support your program. It will not take away from it.
Yes, because it addresses this shrinking foundation of broad musicianship. But K-12 music educators can provide a classroom that's a space where students can build the full toolkit, playing, reading, theory, telling stories when we reach them where they're at. He's got some cool ideas. Insiders get ad-free episodes. You can learn more at our website. But for now, let's get to Amani Roberts.
Amani Roberts, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, you're going to discuss a variety of topics with us today. The one I am most interested in is the differences between how the current generation of, say, teenagers in particular, are consuming music versus how older folks like Alan and I, or even, folks in their 30s were consuming music. What are you seeing? What are the big differences?
I think the first difference, really basic, is like we grew up consuming music by the album, so we let the album tell the story and kind of get all the way through it. Nowadays, the kids, they just want to hear their song and keep it moving. So it's really singular focus for the kind of youth, whereas growing up, more of our seasoned adults like to let the album tell the story. That's what I noticed right away.
What's the impact of that? What are you noticing? Like, how important really is it for them to know that Day in the Life comes at the end of this Sgt. Pepper album versus just hearing Day in the Life on Spotify as its own singular track?
I personally think that it's taken away the complexity in terms of albums. Like, you used to be able to tell a story throughout an entire album and have maybe the final song be like the final chapter of the book, quote unquote. We used to have like interludes, preludes, postludes, and now it's really basic, really simple. So I think it's, for lack of a better word, it's kind of dumbing down music in the album process. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and one kind of common theme, especially this year with some of our guests, has been just the increasing problem of decreasing attention span among the students. And we have not really talked about how this would play into it. You used to have to commit. You'd pay $15 for a CD, or even prior to Spotify, you might pay $15 to download the album, even from iTunes. And you had an investment in that album. And then you also had the attention span, the lack of distraction to really sit down and listen to the whole thing and think about how it all went. So I'm thinking this is just sort of another, you mentioned dumbing down. And I think another way also to look at it is just, this is just what they're used to with the attention spans, with the TikTok videos and reels and things like that, that it's hard to get them to understand. No, it's real cool if you start at the beginning of Dark Side of the Moon and make it all the way to the end. They had the whole process. They were making a whole concert for you in that regard. So what do you do? Do you have have you had some conversations with kids and said, "Hey, check it out, try it. You're going to appreciate it." Like, what do you recommend for our listeners who agree that this is an issue, but they don't know if they want to fight this battle?
I think what we can do is like there's some artists nowadays that will still produce like full length albums and have it tell a story. Taylor Swift is a famous example, so she does very well with that. Kendrick Lamar is also a popular example. So just try to show them just how those two artists are doing it and sharing their ideas and kind of telling a story with the liner notes, all those things. Even they'll even go as far as to have songs that are more than 3 minutes, because you know the time period of a song is less than 3 minutes nowadays. So just show them all the different ways that they're kind of giving credit or shouting out the old format in terms of albums, telling a story, longer songs, interludes, preludes. That's one of the best ways, because if they see some of the artists that they love doing that, then they'll pay closer attention and maybe keep it in mind more.
Yeah, I like that. And the idea, especially of starting with not necessarily, here's a 40-minute album to listen to, but just listen to something that's longer than 2.5 minutes, even. And
Yeah.
that might be an easier starting point. And hopefully they realize, oh, yeah, this 4 minute or 5 minute song maybe took a little bit more investment from a time standpoint, but the payoff was great. There's something that
Yes.
happens 4 minutes in that just feels different because of everything that happened before it.
What are some good 4 to 5 minute songs that we could start with? Either of you have any ideas?
Let's look at Taylor Swift's album. We'll look at her most recent album and see what songs are there, because all of her songs are good. Like she's the best example. Like even let's look at her album here, "The Life of a Showgirl," and we'll see like she's got songs that are kind of 4 minutes. "Eldest Daughter," that's a 4 minute song. That's a good place to start. "Opalite," that's another one. That's 4 minutes too. "The Life of a Showgirl" with Sabrina Carpenter. So therefore, you have two artists that have a 4 minute song. Just start with four. Then you can also go to Kendrick Lamar. Let's see what because I think "Luther's" a pretty long song, and that song actually won a Grammy. So you kind of go to that one too. No, Luther's short, but "Not Like Us." One of probably his biggest songs. That's like a 4.5 minute song. So there
All
you're getting
right.
there more. "Money Tree's 6 minutes, 26 seconds." So these longer songs. So show them those examples. Although some of those have explicit lyrics, you still get the kind of the idea there.
There's a clean version, right?
They're listening
Yes,
to him anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes. That's true too.
I'm also wondering too, like I like the idea of starting with a 5 or 6 minute piece that they probably already know. So
Mhm.
I wonder about this idea as we are maybe trying to teach students the idea that giving an investment into listening is worth it. And for example, Taylor Swift fans, what are some of your favorite songs? And maybe one of them lists one of these on the longer side, and we can kind of talk about how, yeah, it takes time to have a build up and a payoff and sort of a departure as well, instead of just cramming everything in from a greatest hits standpoint. So I think listeners, you probably already have some great stuff at your disposal that the students are already listening to, and you just kind of find them, meet them where they are, and that might be a good way to work on some of that attention span stuff that we've been talking about. What
Yeah.
about when they do find? I'm thinking back to when I bought my Dark Side of the Moon CD or my Sergeant Pepper's CD, that it had like the liner notes in it and how cool that was, where I could see the lyrics and the personnel and sometimes the story behind the recording. And obviously that is not the case anymore with the proliferation of streaming. How are you noticing young people are learning about the music that they are consuming?
I think first of all, like when they hear a song they like, if they don't know it, they recognize or write down a few of the lyrics and they'll Google the lyrics to find out the name of the song. That fascinates me because, I might use like a Shazam or things like that, but they actually go through the lyrics and let the lyrics tell them what the song is, which I find very interesting. It's just very interesting.
Huh.
Then they will pretty much go to social media to look at the artist behind the scenes, or if they're explaining kind of the video and how they made the song, like that's where they go to. So that's kind of replaced liner notes. If we're lucky, they'll look at wherever the song is streaming, whether it be Apple Music, Spotify, etc. They can see who the producer is there, but most of the time they don't really know. The songwriter, like these kind of people who are contributing songs, get kind of lost amongst the shuffle, which is why you see a lot of songwriters trying to share what they've written, be more present on social media and write. Whereas in the past, a lot of songwriters were more invisible. Nowadays, they have to be visible because they need to for people to know who they are too. So those are some of the ways that students, particularly K through 12, are learning about what's the behind the scenes story for the songs they like, who the songwriters are, but it's mostly figuring out what the song is and then going to social media to learn more about it.
Man, this is funny because I thought when I was using Shazam to help me identify something, I thought I was doing what the young people do, but I'm clearly not. We're
No. I mean, some of them do, but
yeah,
you'd be surprised how many people you say, "How did you figure out what the song this was?" I say, "Oh, I googled the lyrics."
yeah.
So it's a big deal. So it's really important.
So, Alan, as you hear that, what implications do you think that has for teachers?
I think that teachers need to get with the program a little bit, but I think teachers should be encouraged by that to realize kids might be more interested in going beyond surface level more than we thought. I think most people know that there's a new button. Well, it's not that new, but it was new to me when I discovered it that you can, at least when you listen in Apple Music, if you're listening to music, you can poke the square with the quotes in it, and then you will start to see the lyrics.
Yeah.
And on Apple TV, which a lot of classrooms have Apple TV, when you go to Apple Music there, you've got like a sing along feature that's pretty
Hmm.
easy to see and use where the lyrics come on the screen karaoke style. So those are some like easy technology tools that everybody probably has at their fingertips that can capitalize on taking a look at those lyrics and the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
Teachers probably have to screen some of those YouTube videos about the origin story
Yeah.
just in
Yeah.
terms of language and context and appropriateness and stuff.
I'm wondering too if I feel like a pretty typical assignment would be learn more about the history of this artist or the biography of this artist, and therefore please go to Wikipedia or do a Google search or something like that. And I even just wonder if saying, hey, just learn whatever you want about this. Use social media, use whatever you'd like.
Hmm.
And as is often the case, the kids might surprise us by coming up with more and better ideas than we could if we put some parameters on them in that regard.
That'd be a great project to have for sure.
So, one thing Alan and I are sort of lamenting and also celebrating is this prevalence of interest in music production and beat making. And we lament it as former band directors, thinking, oh, there's more kids who just don't want to play the trumpet and would rather
Yeah.
do something else. But now that we're not doing that, we can celebrate it as, hey, kids still want to make music. Kids still want to be creative. So that part is good. And then also we go back to lamenting it, thinking our music ed programs in college, they're not teaching teachers how to teach kids to make beats and music production and things like that, probably to the level that the kids are interested in. So I feel like there's this, we're not doing a great job right now collectively as K-12 music teachers understanding that there are a lot of kids who want to make music. They would love to make music. They just want to make it in a little bit different way than we have been trained. What are you noticing? What do you recommend?
I'm noticing the same thing. Like you have a lot more people. I grew up playing the saxophone that want to make beats and go on GarageBand than you will want to learn the saxophone. So I think in some ways that's good because we're teaching them how to create. I mean, you look at Phineas, who is Billie Eilish's brother.
Mm.
Making all her music pretty much from their house. So you have more like bedroom producers, people that can produce a Grammy-winning album from their house. They don't even need to go to the studio, which is crazy. And they have all sorts of instruments. I also think that with the proliferation of AI, like it's easier than ever to make a beat, then get some chords, put it on top of that, and all that, and to make a song. Where I think the issue lies is that pretty much for the most part, when you use all those services, you're gonna have a pretty predictable chord structure, like a 1, a 4, a 5, back to the 1. It's pretty much it. You're not gonna see much minor. Maybe you have minor if it's a sad song, love song, but music theory, which is important because you need to know the rules so you know how to break the rules. I think that as people make more beats, that kind of goes by the wayside, and that's unfortunate because music theory is where you break a rule, but you have a whole new chord structure that can be used to kind of have a great song. And I just think that another aspect is that making beats is pretty much a singular sport, a singular art. Whereas when you're in the band,
Yeah.
you have 15, 20 other people that are playing with you. You have to learn group dynamics, how to work in a group. You have to learn when it's your time to play a part, when you have to kind of soften up, let someone else solo. The whole group dynamics, which factors into real life, is missing.
And I'll tell you this. So I teach at a small liberal arts college and I teach the music fundamentals or theory courses. And I had some students at the beginning of the year ask, so how do we get into that music studio downstairs with the microphones and everything? And I remember some mentors teaching me a while ago, hey, if you got kids who are interested, sometimes all you have to do is unlock the door and just let them do their thing. And I swear, every time I walk past there or pop my head in, they're doing beat making, but there's 6 or 7 of them, and they are definitely collaborating, giving each other feedback and ideas. And it isn't exactly the same as, like you said, playing in a band together, but it's really cool to walk in there and see them doing that. And then, I quickly get out of there so they can go back to being creative.
Yeah.
So if a teacher just wants a very basic entry point to this, they maybe are teaching a middle school general music class, and they're like, yep, I'm willing to give the students some time to explore this. Where would they start in terms of software or equipment, or I guess we call it apps now?
Yeah.
This whole thing's making me feel old, Amani. But all right.
Don't feel old. Don't feel. We're learning together. We're learning together. Usually, you can start with like GarageBand for Macintosh. That's
Okay, so that still works for this.
Yeah, that still works.
Okay.
If you want to take it up a level, you can maybe try to introduce them to a DAW like an Ableton Live or FL Studio. But start with GarageBand. Something that's fun for students. I volunteer at this camp, which is a DJ and music production camp for kids, is that you can you'll teach them, they have the kick, the snare, etc., hi-hat, all that. But what they can do is in between classes, go around school in their houses and record different sounds. Record sounds like maybe, the tinkle of a glass, raindrops on like a roof, different sounds that then they can use those sounds to make part of their beat, their production. So
do we still call those samples or not? Does that have a new?
This wouldn't be a sample because they're actually recording like it's real life, so they don't have to do that. Now, sampling that could be level 2 of the class because then they can figure out sampling. But then you got to teach them clearance. You can't teach them how to sample with how to clear it legally, so you got to do that too. But just different sounds. Maybe it's a dog barking, maybe it's a door closing. Just different sounds, so that they can add those sounds into their production. They can warp them, they can stretch them out, speed them up. You never know. That gives them a little bit of diversity in terms of what they're using in terms of their quote unquote drum set, their percussion set. And then they use like the little MPC things where they push the buttons and the tabs and make the beats and things like that. That's something else that I think teachers could do. That's the second step. First you use GarageBand, then you use like an MPC so they can program their sounds and hit the buttons. And I think you will have the students create a lot of music and some really interesting things. And that will be a good foundation, in my opinion.
So, Alan, I'm thinking about that music fundamentals class I was just telling you about, where some of the kids came up and wanted to use my studio. And I just basically gave one of them a key, and they're kind of in charge of the music production club now. And I haven't done anything really past showing an interest in it, like letting them play their stuff for me and encouraging them to do it. But I haven't taught them anything. What I have noticed is in my class where they have to learn that when we go from the 4 chord to the 5 chord, it's good to move all the upper voices down against the bass in contrary motion. Like they seem a little bit more into learning that, I think, just simply because I seem to care about what they're doing. So I'm even wondering about high school band, orchestra, choir teachers who don't have the time or the technical equipment to be able to do this with their students, just encouraging some of them and saying, hey, if any of you are doing this, I'd like to hear it. Come play it for me. And they're like, yeah, that's super cool. Ask a question about it. And yeah, show me what you're doing a month from now. If maybe they're going to try a little harder on the saxophone and band. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think so. I mean, I think that just builds relationships and shows that you're on their side. And I think that generates more loyalty and interest. But it also, all that experimentation is like, okay, well, this is fun on the sampler and in GarageBand or with the synthesizer. And how can I replicate this on my saxophone? Or like if you play your saxophone, I play my saxophone. How can we replicate that? Right there. I remember in the early 1980s, hearing pop songs, and then like me and a trumpet player and a French horn player, we get together in a practice room. I played the tuba, and we try to copy it. We tried to copy songs by Ozzy Osbourne, and our director let us do that. I was on the opposite side of what Steve just described. When I was in college at Warburg College, had a professor, a guy named Paul Torkelson, who thought it'd be cool to buy a lot of the latest, greatest technology. No time to use it, no time to learn it. He gave me a key to his office. I'm not sure it was legal. Gave me a key to his office, and I created hours and hours and hours worth of original compositions using a drum machine and 2 synthesizers and a hardware sequencer. And I realized, I think that was the term that we used for electronic music back in the 70s and 80s. I realized compositions by Verdi, Bach, Rutter, and Orff by like creating my own arrangements of art music. And I learned so much from that because I ended up studying scores accidentally, learning about voice leading accidentally. And it was just because he's like, I have these toys. Do you want to play with them? And he let me. And he showed some interest in it, but I didn't really care. Like I would have, I would have been motivated anyway. But what I've also noticed working with high school kids, not in the music education setting, but in other settings where I'm working with young people, I've let them play with the GarageBand on my iPad. And GarageBand is different on the iPad than it is on the laptop or desktop. So I think it's worth exploring both of those options.
Agreed.
And I've let them create some songs with some samples, and they see how quick it is. It engages, and I think it gets them excited about music in general. And you can translate that to getting into saxophone lessons. Sorry, we should let our guests talk a little bit.
It's okay.
Do you have any reactions to anything we're sharing?
Well, in the 80s, that's when synthesizers were really big. That's when they got to be really big. So that's ironic that you were actually working on that during that time period, because that's the synth. That was the synth movement in the 80s, and it's really interesting to hear if you listen to 80s song, but then you listen to a lot of popular songs now, particularly I'm thinking of like Dua Lipa, and I'm thinking of Sabrina Carpenter. They have that 80s feel to them, so they're bringing that sound back, which is very interesting. And ironically, the kids nowadays are like, oh, this is like original. You're like, no, let me play you some Madonna. Let me play you some Cyndi Lauper, just the authors your artists that use that kind of sound from before. New Order, and they're like, oh, I get it. So they kind of see. So history often repeats itself.
So it's been a tough couple of decades in terms of music education in the K-12 setting. Fewer programs, less funding. Have you seen this impact the industry at all?
Yes. I think now you'll have, really, it's just diminished the industry in terms of you'll have less artists who can sing, play the piano, and like understand music at the same time. They're more specialized. Maybe they can sing, but they can't play the piano. You take an artist like Ed Sheeran, he plays his ukulele, he can play the guitar, he can sing, he can play the piano. That's very rare nowadays, whereas before it was more common. It was more common for an artist to be able to sit down live, not need a track, not need the band, and can play their music and sing along acoustically. That is becoming more rare because education, the foundation for many artists, isn't as strong. Now, you will have some unicorns. I'll go back to like Taylor Swift, who's a unicorn. I'll go back to, artists. I'm trying to think who else, like...
I'd even think someone like Prince or Stevie Wonder who did that. They would have been able to do that regardless of what kind of,
Well, they're rare cases. Like Prince could play every instrument in his band.
Paul McCartney's still doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're talking about the rest of us mortals that we maybe need that formal music education training to help have a broad approach.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of what I've noticed. But then, to their credit, more current artists, they can write. They can write so many songs in such a short period of time. They write so many more songs than in the past, where many musicians were singing other people's songs, where nowadays they're kind of writing their own music and singing it too. So those are some of the differences that are good, and positive and negative in terms of what I've noticed.
Yeah, so I think what I'm hearing is our listeners could use this as a way to keep the students involved in their programs by saying, look, there's a need right now out there in the industry. If you're interested in the industry, having more skills rather than fewer is going to help you with that.
Yes.
Sticking around, learning to play music in a different clef or in a clef period, and being able to sing and so forth, that's going to make you well-rounded and give you a better shot of getting hired or getting in somehow.
Yeah, use current artists that they love. Like use Ed Sheeran. He's a great example because he really started songwriting. That's his specialty first. And then he, was able to sing his own songs. Use, a lot of country artists. They're really good to study because they play the guitar, they can play the piano, and then they sing and they write. I think
and they tell stories. Sorry to
Yes.
interrupt, but I
No,
just,
no, no.
that's,
Yes.
that's the thing I like about country.
Yes, and and that's a skill that needs to be developed. So if we show the kids, okay, well today we're not going to focus on anything music theory or playing instrument, we're just going to talk about telling stories. And then the next class, okay, well let's transfer this story that we told yesterday into a song. And then you kind of show them the process of how it works. And if they can hone that skill, that will really, really help them, have a longer career and have a career at all.
Very cool. So what have you been up to recently?
Well, I'm celebrating the 1 year anniversary of my book, which is on the history of R&B groups. So that's keeping me quite busy because I'm going to turn that book into a trivia game and then eventually to a documentary.
Nice.
As a full-time DJ and speaker, I've been performing across the country. I just got back from San Antonio and Pittsburgh and headed to Boise, Idaho in a couple of weeks. And then we're in the middle of the semester. I teach music business at Cal State University Fullerton. So those three big activities are keeping me plenty busy.
Very good. Tell us a little bit more about the book.
The book, I take the history of R&B groups starting in the 1950s all the way to the mid-2000s. Each decade, I highlight the top groups based on Grammy nominations and wins, Billboard Hot 100 hits, notable performances, and then album sales. And did research. It's 4.5 years of research, broke it up per decade. That's the first 80% of the book. The last 20% is what happened to R&B groups, why did they disappear, and what can happen next. And it's called The Quiet Storm as a tribute to the radio format from the 70s to the late 90s that played a lot of love songs and slow jams featuring a lot of R&B groups, and also the song of Quiet Storm by Smokey Robinson that got to be really big back in the day.
All right. Looking forward to checking out that book. Can you stick around for a couple more minutes for our lightning round, Amani?
Absolutely. I'm ready.
All right. So you are living in Vegas at the moment. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. What's your favorite restaurant in Vegas these days? I know there's a lot to choose from.
There's a lot of great food here. I'm partial to this tapas restaurant called Firefly. There's 2 or 3 locations around, but they have some great, great tapas. I love it. That's one of my favorites.
All right. How about a musical artist or a group or even just a song that you wish more people knew about?
One of my favorite artists that I wish more people knew about is Babyface.
Oh,
Babyface
yeah.
is a phenomenal songwriter, phenomenal singer. He's worked with many artists that you might not even realize. I feel more people should know about his genius.
All right. How about a favorite film or TV series you're enjoying recently?
Shrinking, which is on Apple TV with Harrison Ford and my other guy. I can't forget the other 2 people's names.
Jason Segel.
Jason Segel and Jessica Johnson, I think her name is. Oh, so well written, so well acted, and it's so good. And so I think I'm up to season 3 now. I'm behind by a few episodes, but I love that show. It's really good.
All right. How about the most memorable musical performance or concert you've attended?
Ooh. Okay, so this is going to date myself. It was the early 90s. I saw Tina Marie and Roger and Zapp open up for them. Tina Marie was at Constitution Hall. May she rest in peace. And I'll never forget, she was drenched in sweat, yet she still did her encore, had them wheel out the piano, and she did Dear Lover, one of her most famous songs, drenched in sweat, playing the piano and just singing. That was amazing. That one I will never forget.
All right. And finally, a book recommendation, please, for our listeners.
I love the book Shantaram, which is not a fiction book. It tells a great story. It's over 1,000 pages, so you need a good long vacation to read it or a long plane flight. And I just think that's a great, great book. And the storytelling and the character development, phenomenal. I love that book.
Amani Roberts, it's been a lot of fun to visit with you, and a trip down memory lane for Dr. Shanley and I accidentally we didn't expect. So thanks for being our guide for that and our guest today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been fun to chat and discuss all what's going on.
Thanks for listening to Music Ed Insights.
We're supported by Group Dynamic, a leading provider of youth leadership workshops. Alan works with dozens of schools each year to help develop their leaders. Learn more at groupdynamicyouth.com.
Or you could email me at alan@groupdynamic.net. Also sponsored by the Co-College Music Education Program. They've got a website too.
Just click their link at our website or email me at sshanley@coe.edu.
Also, The Normal Design, helping normal companies and people create memorable, meaningful, and professional designs and branding. More at thenormaldesign.com.
And Winterset Websites, website design and maintenance. WintersetWebsites.com.
Our Facebook page is Music Ed Insights.
Our website has program notes, links, and a one-page download of this episode's key takeaways. That's on musicedinsights.com.
You can expect a new episode most Mondays during the school year.
Get current.
Stay relevant.
Music Ed Insights.